5 dark chosen ones who were sent to replace systems, not serve them. There's a truth that we rarely speak out loud because it shakes the very foundations of the world as we know it. Not everyone sent here was meant to follow the rules. Some of us were born as disruptors, not followers. Some of us carry codes too ancient, too wild, too powerful to be tamed by the structures this world built to keep people asleep. And if you're watching this, chances are you're one of us. You've felt it your whole life, haven't you? That invisible tension between who you are and what the world expects you to be. You've sat in classrooms, in boardrooms, in churches, in families, feeling like something was deeply off. Not just off for you, but off altogether. And while others nodded along, while others adapted, while others played their role in the system, you couldn't. Not because you were rebellious for the sake of it, but because your soul refused to lie. You weren't sent here to serve the system. You were sent here to replace it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
This message isn't for everyone. It's not for the ones still chasing approval, still seeking validation from dying institutions. It's not for the ones who want to play it safe, stay likable, or blend in. This message is for the rare souls who've been marked by fire, the ones who've been rejected without cause, punished for their clarity, and silenced because their truth was too loud for the room. This is for the dark chosen ones, not dark because they are evil, but dark because they were forged in the shadows, in silence, in solitude. Chosen not because they were perfect, but because they were necessary. You see, every system that governs our world, education, religion, government, economics, even mainstream spirituality, was built in an era of fear, built to control, built to maintain power for the few at the cost of the many. And for a long time, these systems worked because people were disconnected from their own power. But something is changing now. The earth is awakening. The collective consciousness is rising. And with that rise comes the need for replacement, not repair. We're not here to put band-aids on broken systems. We're here to build new worlds entirely. And to do that, 5 very specific types of dark chosen ones were sent, not in robes, not preaching on pulpits, but hidden in plain sight. Misfits, artists, healers, rebels, visionaries. And each one carries a unique frequency of disruption, a code that, when activated, unravels the illusions that hold false systems together. But before we dive into the 5, I need to be honest with you. Being a dark chosen one is not glamorous. It's not about likes, followers, or spiritual aesthetics. It's about sacrifice. It's about walking alone. It's about being misunderstood, not because you're unclear, but because your clarity threatens everything people have built their identity around. You've likely already experienced this. You've walked into spaces and felt your energy shift the room before you said a word. You've spoken truth and watched people flinch, not because you were cruel, but because your words pierced a lie they were clinging to. You've lost people, not because you were wrong, but because your presence demanded growth they weren't ready for. And still, you stayed soft. Still, you loved. Still, you served, not from ego, but from soul. That's the paradox of the dark chosen ones. We are feared and needed at the same time. We are exiled and sought out in the same breath. And if you've lived through this, I want you to hear me deeply. You are not broken. You are not too intense. You are not a mistake. You are encoded with the frequency of collapse, not personal collapse, but systemic collapse. When you enter a space, outdated energies can't hold their form. You don't even have to try. Your frequency does the work, and that is divine design. That's why you couldn't just go along like everyone else. That's why you questioned things no one else dared to. That's why you felt like an alien in your own home, in your own body, in your own culture. Because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to bring in the new frequency. But let me ask you something that might shake you. What if the chaos you've survived wasn't random? What if it was your training ground? What if every betrayal, every loss, every identity death was preparation for the mission you're finally ready to carry out? You didn't come here to be comfortable. You came here to be effective, to see through the lies, to decode the matrix, to pull back the veil and show the world what's real. But you can't do that if you're still trying to be light. You can't do that if you're still waiting for permission. Systems don't invite their replacements. They resist them. They demonize them. And that's where your courage comes in. You have to be willing to be the villain in someone else's narrative in order to be the liberator in your own. And here's the wildest part: you've already been doing it. Quietly, subtly, in conversations, in energy, in your silence, in your refusal to comply, in your ability to hold truth when everyone around you is performing. But now, it's time to own it. The world doesn't need more light workers who bypass the shadow. It needs dark chosen ones who've mastered it, who've made peace with being the storm, not just the calm after it, who've stopped trying to fix what's crumbling and started building what's coming. So I'm going to show you who these 5 dark chosen ones are. I'm going to walk you through their archetypes, their battles, their codes, and their missions. But I need you to remember this one thing: you may recognize pieces of each of them inside yourself. That's not by accident. That's your soul saying, it's time to remember who you are. The system replaces 5 living codes of power hidden in human form. Let's get one thing clear. These 5 dark chosen ones aren't characters in a story or distant mythological figures. They are living codes, blueprints of divine disruption walking around in human form. And you've probably seen them. You may be one of them. But they don't announce themselves. They don't need to. Their power isn't in their appearance, it's in their frequency. Just being in their presence shifts the energy. Just hearing their voice cracks open illusions. And once you understand their archetypes, you'll begin to see how they've been working behind the scenes, not to serve the current systems, but to dismantle them. The first is the mirror breaker, the one who refuses to reflect back what the world wants to see. They are the ones who challenge the status quo simply by being honest when it's inconvenient, by telling the truth when it's unwanted. You know the type. The friend who can't lie to save your feelings. The co-worker who disrupts a meeting with one question that silences the room. The partner who won't let you hide behind your trauma story. They don't smooth things over because they weren't sent to soothe the egos. They were sent to crack them open. And it's not because they lack empathy. It's because they see what's possible beyond the illusion. The mirror breaker doesn't destroy to be cruel, they destroy illusions so the soul can breathe again. Their power is in clarity. But their path is often lonely because most people would rather be comforted by a lie than confronted by truth. Then there is the code disruptor. This one is a walking contradiction. They don't fit into any box and systems hate them for it. They're too spiritual for the corporate world, too logical for spiritual circles, too wild for tradition, too refined to be dismissed. They don't obey cultural scripts. They write new ones. These are the people who seem to exist in a constant state of reinvention. You can't predict them. You can't label them. And that's the point. Their entire existence is a form of rebellion. They confuse the system not because they're confused, but because they refuse to be defined by it. Their life is the message, I will not be domesticated by your expectations. And in doing so, they give others permission to break out of their own conditioning. Their power is in their refusal to comply, but they often carry deep wounds of being misunderstood because the world fears what it can't categorize. The third is the silent architect. You won't always notice this one at first. They're not loud. They're not flashy, but they're watching. They're studying the patterns, the energy, the unspoken agreements that hold systems together. And when the time is right, They speak, and when they do, everything shifts. These are the builders of new blueprints. They don't yell over the noise, they plant seeds in the silence. They write the books, design the frameworks, create the technologies, hold the meditations, or craft the language of the new world. Their presence is subtle but massively effective. They don't need attention. They need alignment. They wait for timing. And when they move with precision. Their power is in vision. But because they operate in the shadows, they're often doubted, underestimated, or even forgotten, until suddenly, they're the ones with the blueprint when everything collapses. The fourth is the emotional alchemist. You've met them. The ones who can feel what no one else is willing to feel. They walk into rooms and absorb the unspoken grief, the rage, the numbness, the longing. Their heart is a crucible. They don't just empathize, they transmute. These are the people who cry during conversations that others laugh through. The ones who can sit with your pain without trying to fix it. They don't need you to be okay, they need you to be real. And when you are, healing begins. Because their frequency is medicine. They teach us that emotions are not the enemy, they are the gateway. Their power is in presence. But they often suffer quietly, overwhelmed by the weight of collective emotions, especially when they haven't yet mastered the art of boundaries. And finally, the sacred provoker. This one doesn't care about your comfort zone. They care about your awakening. They are the fire that won't go out, the voice that won't be silenced, the force that calls out hypocrisy even when it costs them everything. These are the revolutionaries, the truth tellers, the whistleblowers, the artists who dare to speak what no one else will. They provoke not to punish, but to awaken. Their very existence says, you are not as free as you think you are. And while some revere them, most reject them because provokers are rarely welcomed in the systems they're meant to replace. Their power is in fearlessness, but their path is often brutal, because awakening the collective means becoming the target of its projections. Now I want to ask you something that only your soul can answer. Which of these 5 lives in you? Which one have you been suppressing because it didn't fit into the world around you? And what would happen if you finally let that part of you lead? You're not here to serve what's dying. You're here to midwife what's being born. These 5 archetypes aren't personalities, they're missions. They are divine functions. When you activate them, you don't just change your life. You begin to unravel the false structures around you. You become the replacement, not in theory, in reality. You were designed to break rules that were never sacred, the inner mechanics of system replacement. Let's get brutally honest, most of what you were taught to obey was never sacred. It was just old. And just because something is old doesn't mean it's wise, it often just means it's been left unchallenged long enough to grow roots in the collective mind. But deep down, you've always known this. You felt the friction inside your bones every time someone told you that's just the way it is. You felt the inner rebellion rise not from arrogance, but from remembrance. Because some part of you remembers a different way, a higher way, and that memory lives in your nervous system like a quiet defiance. That's why you've never truly belonged in blind obedience. Because you weren't designed to serve the system. You were designed to replace it from the inside out. And here's where it gets deep. Replacing a system doesn't start with external rebellion. It starts with internal deconstruction. Every system out there, whether it's capitalism, religious doctrine, education, or even family roles, relies on one thing to survive: your unconscious agreement. That's the key. You don't serve systems with your hands. You serve them with your silence, your compliance, your unquestioned belief. So the first act of system replacement is not to scream at the world. It's to withdraw your energy from everything you no longer resonate with. And that's not easy. It means letting go of identities that once made you feel safe. It means being misunderstood, judged, even exiled. But here's the paradox: only by becoming unacceptable to the old world can you become aligned with the new one. Let me ask you, how many rules are you still following out of fear of being rejected? How many masks are you still wearing just to be allowed in a room you don't even want to be in anymore? The inner mechanics of system replacement require a level of self-honesty that most people avoid their entire lives. But not you. You're here. You're listening. That means some part of you is ready to dismantle the false constructs within you that have been propping up the very systems you claim to hate. And there's more. Replacing systems also requires that we stop trying to fix what was never built for us in the first place. That school that never taught you how to think, only how to memorize. It wasn't broken. It was designed that way. That religion that made you feel guilty for questioning. That wasn't a flaw. That was the point. That economy that rewards exploitation and punishes rest. That wasn't a glitch. That was the blueprint. And here's where your power comes in. When you stop trying to fix systems that were never made for your liberation, you begin to create new ones without apology. But creation takes space. And space is created when you say no. No to the job that drains your soul. No to the relationship where you can't be your full self. No to the spiritual bypassing that tells you to just love and light your way through collective trauma. Every no you speak becomes a chisel to the old world. Every yes you hold for your truth becomes an invitation for the new one. And let's not forget the energetic mechanics. Systems don't just exist in institutions, they exist in frequencies. That means every time you return to your center, every time you regulate your nervous system, every time you choose presence over reaction, you are disrupting the energetic agreements that keep old systems alive. Your inner peace is not passive, it's revolutionary. Your healing is not personal, it's architectural. The more whole you become, the less the old world can use your pain, your fear, your confusion to keep itself alive. This is why the journey of the dark chosen one is so intense. Because we're not just breaking rules, we're breaking agreements. Agreements with guilt, with shame, with scarcity, with invisibility. These aren't just emotions. They are currencies in old systems. And when you stop paying with them, the system starts to collapse. Not with fire and fury, but with quiet, undeniable non-compliance. That's how change really begins. So I'll ask you again, more directly this time, which internal system are you still serving, even though it's already expired? What part of you is still negotiating with a reality that was built to keep you small? And what would happen if you stopped asking for permission and simply walked away? This is the inner work of system replacement. It's not glamorous. It's not always visible. But it is foundational, because when you shift the structure inside you, you begin to radiate a frequency that makes the old world feel irrelevant. That's the real revolution. Not shouting in the streets, though, that has its place, but walking through the world so free, so whole, so untouchable, that people start to wonder, what system is she living in? What reality is he plugged into? And that's when the transmission begins. You become the evidence. You become the invitation. You become the replacement. The end of permission becoming the living proof that the old world has expired. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey where the question shifts. It's no longer what can I do to change the system. It becomes, why am I still asking for permission to be who I already am? That moment is a doorway, a spiritual threshold, and many never cross it. Because to walk through it means you stop negotiating with the old world. You stop performing for its approval. You stop softening your truth to be digestible. You stop waiting for someone to validate what your soul already knows. The end of permission is the beginning of power. And not power in the way the system defines it, domination, hierarchy, control, but power as presence. Power as embodiment. Power as irreversibility. When you cross that threshold, something irreversible happens inside you. You become the evidence that the old world has expired. You don't need to debate it. You are it. You walk into spaces and the frequency of your being communicates something words never could. There is another way. I am living it. And that's why you're dangerous to any system built on fear. Because you no longer operate on the currency of fear. You're not controlled by shame. You're not manipulable through scarcity. You're not seduced by the illusion of status. You've seen behind the curtain, and now there's no going back. But this level of embodiment doesn't come from study. It comes from integration. It comes from every night you cried alone, wondering if you were crazy for seeing what others refused to see. It comes from every time you held your truth in silence because you knew the room couldn't hold it. It comes from every identity death, every ego collapse, every moment you chose integrity over belonging. And now all of it is sacred data. Your nervous system has been recoded. Your energy field has been recalibrated. You are no longer compatible with systems built on lies. And this is what most people don't understand about the path of the dark chosen one. We didn't become this way through theory. We became this way through initiation, through fire, through grief, through loss, through the holy loneliness of being the first to say no, the first to walk away, the first to speak the unspeakable, the first to stop playing the game. And now you are proof. Not proof that change is possible, proof that change is inevitable. The old world is already crumbling under the weight of its own deception. You're not here to save it, you're here to outlive it. The question is, will you finally stop waiting for permission to rise? Will you stop waiting for the world to approve what your soul has already initiated? Will you stop asking, is it okay if I shine? And start declaring, I am the light, and I'm not dimming anymore. Because here's the truth. The system will never give you permission to transcend it. That's not its job. Its job is to keep you questioning yourself just enough to stay inside the loop. But you're not in the loop anymore. You've stepped out. You've seen too much. You've remembered too deeply. And now your life becomes the new system. How you speak, how you love, how you rest, how you create, how you hold space for others, how you walk into rooms without shrinking, how you honor your boundaries without guilt, how you make choices from soul, not from survival. All of it becomes a living broadcast, not a performance, a transmission. People feel it. They don't even know why they're drawn to you. But something in their DNA recognizes your frequency. You're not a teacher. You're a reminder. So let me leave you with this. You were never here to fix the old paradigm. You were sent to out-frequency it, to become the living proof that there is nothing left to ask permission for. That your existence, in its unedited form, is the revolution. And not everyone will understand it. Not everyone will honor it. But the ones who are meant to wake up, they'll find you. Not because you marketed yourself well, but because your very being makes the old world feel like a faded dream they no longer want to return to. And that is the moment the new world begins.